Okay, well, welcome back everybody for the next presentation, which will be given by Alef Arendsen from the Netherlands. Alef is one of the founders of a company called The New Motion, which was started a few years ago. And it was very interesting to hear so far from people that have been focused on social businesses, focused on the bottom of the pyramid in developing countries. And by contrast, The New Motion is a company that is focused on the developed world and is trying to tackle another very pressing issue, namely climate change in the larger sense and in a more focused sense, the use of fossil fuel in everyday transport. Alef, I would like to give the floor to you, and please introduce yourself and tell us about your story with The New Motion and the way the company started.
Yeah, thanks, Menno. Appreciate to be able to present here today. Yeah, so the title slide says eradicating fossil fuel use for everyday transport. Before we go into that, I'd like to shortly introduce myself a little bit. So again, my name, Alef Arendsen. I'm 34, from Amsterdam here. I had a background in software engineering before I started the company that I'm currently with, The New Motion. In 2002, started my first company called J-Team, as you can see on the right here. And since then, grew J-Team as well as another company called SpringSource to quite successful businesses in the first decade of this century. And after those businesses were both sold in 2009, I was kind of sitting back and relaxing and thought, what would be my next move? And then I kind of figured I wanted to do something that I could explain to my grandma. Software isn't anything you can explain to anybody, or at least not to anybody out on the street, and certainly not my grandma. So I wanted to do something which kind of was a bit more visible, a bit more tangible, rather than just the occasional bits and bytes and pieces of programming. So I ran into a bunch of guys that were busy working on electric transport in the Netherlands. Trying to prep the market in Holland, working on setting up a movement, and after like a few weeks just hanging out with these guys, I joined them, and that's how the company, The New Motion, came together. So we started early 2009. We're about 70 employees right now, 60, 70 people right now, and so the company's been in existence for about 4 years now. Just to give you a bit of background about the company, I'll explain more what we're doing right now and what we're actually into at this point. We started early 2009. We're backed by a couple of venture capital firms, as well as some members of the management team have put in some money. There's a foundation called the Stichting Doen, which is a Dutch charitable foundation, which has put in some money. So we're a heavily venture and charitable backed company. We do aim to make profits, which I'll come back to later on in a bit. Currently about 70 employees. We're started in Holland and moving into Belgium and Germany at this point. What you're seeing on the right here is what we use internally to kind of align everybody to our long-term goals. So we set our long-term, what we call the big, hairy, audacious goal, to eradicate fossil fuel use for transport. I've always been kind of amazed by the fact that we've been driving around in internal combustion engine cars, just regular gas cars, for the last 100 years. Right next to me, there's an iPhone, and 20 years ago, there wasn't even a mobile telephone. And 20 years later, there's this thing called an iPhone that kind of replaces my desktop computer and my laptop computer more and more. And in the last 100 years, we haven't been able to kind of go from using 1 liter of gas in 1 kilometer to using 100 liters or using 1 liter of gas for 100 kilometers, let alone having moved to different and cleaner forms of transport. So we wanted to speed up that change. So we basically want to eradicate fossil fuel use for transport in the next 30 years, or at least help doing that. Now, in the next 10 years, basically what we see as an important step in the right direction is the large-scale adoption of electric vehicles. because that at least cuts the gas line. So we can actually just replace gas by electricity. Of course, plenty of people will say, that electricity is all generated by coal or gas or anything else, or nuclear power plants maybe. But by putting electricity in the car, we at least have the flexibility of going to solar-powered energy or wind-powered energy or anything like that. So we consider large-scale adoption a big step in the right direction. What we're going to do in the next 3 to 5 years is what we've said is we want to become the leading charging as a service provider. Now what that means is that if you buy an electric car, we will make it very easy, very convenient, and very safe, and very cheap, hopefully as well, for you to charge your car. And I'll go into what it actually means. What we're doing in Holland currently is we're working together with a lot of the car manufacturers, such as Opel and Nissan and Toyota and a number of others, to basically help drivers of cars, electric cars from these companies, to help these drivers charge their car easily, whether it be at home. And basically what you're seeing here on the screen in the top left is the charge stations that we put at people's homes and offices. Whether it is at public charge stations. Now, in the iPhone app on the right, you're seeing a couple of charge stations in the region of Amsterdam. You can use those as well, using one of the passes that you'll see on the slide as well. In the bottom middle section of the slide, you see a fast charger. This one is in the neighborhood of Amersfoort, where you can quick charge your car. So we basically operate a network of chargers, and we hand out subscriptions for people to charge their car at home, at the office, and at roadside restaurants, etc., etc. I usually kind of draw a bunch of analogies between our business model and that of different companies or other companies. In a way, our model resembles that of MasterCard a little bit. Now, what MasterCard does is it basically enables you to pay at any at any store or at any retail outlet, basically. Now, we allow you to charge your car everywhere. Now, MasterCard has a network of terminals around the world, and basically they send out these terminals to people. In these days, you can buy them anywhere on the street, a terminal. And then they have a back office that facilitates all these money transactions. Now, we have a network of charge stations that we own and operate. Sometimes other people connect their charge stations to our network. And then our back office systems, they basically facilitate the charge transactions. So in that sense, we're a little bit like MasterCard in terms of the business model. We're also a bit like Vodafone, you could say. Now, Vodafone is putting out GSM, mobile telecommunications infrastructure. So on the top of buildings, everywhere else, basically, they put down GSM infrastructure, and then they sell subscriptions for you to be able to use your mobile phone. In that sense, we're a bit the same. We put down charge infrastructure, and then we sell subscriptions for you to be able to charge your car using that particular infrastructure. Okay, so some numbers. We started, like I said, early 2009, developing the product, working our way into the industry, closing commercial contracts with companies like Opel and Nissan and Toyota and a bunch of others. And then mid-2011, we started rolling out the network. To date, we've rolled out some 3,500, closing in on 4,000 charge stations at people's homes and people's offices. We install parking or charge stations at people's parking places, retail chains like IKEA and hotel chains and roadside restaurants. There's a network of 50 fast chargers throughout the country, and we're currently expanding into Germany and Belgium as well. About 5,000 people are actively using it. There's about 3,000 transactions a day. So the numbers are actually quite on the increase. It's not like millions and millions yet, but well, it's getting somewhere. On the right hand, you're seeing some interesting statistics here. You're seeing that people are actually plugging in mostly in the evenings. So the big peak in the top left graph or the top right graph, you're seeing occur right after 6 p.m. So that's when people actually just plug in their car, which is actually a major problem because it's the same time where you actually will be putting on your cooktop, your microwave oven, and all your lights in your house and your television set. So and then we're actually making the problem even bigger because because we're actually adding to that problem by people charging their cars at that time. So we're working on solutions to prevent that from happening. Anyway, just some numbers and figures basically. Now, what I think is interesting is to go into the area of the question and actually the topic of the conference, the social business. Now, there were a couple of presentations that were not so much into the developed world, but more into the developing world. Like Menno said, we're mostly active in the highly developed world, the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, looking into other countries as well at this point, but mostly Europe, Northwest Europe. That's what we're actually into. Now, going into the actual topic of social and social business, the term social business was first coined by Mohammed Yunus, a guy who I had the privilege to meet last year, and a very inspiring guy. I mean, we all know him probably. And what he said, it's a non-loss, non-dividend company designed to address a social objective within the highly regulated marketplace of today. It's non-profit, should generate a modest profit used to expand the company's reach. Now, this is all from Wikipedia, and in Wikipedia, the quote also says, in fact, a wider definition of social business is possible, including any business which has a social rather than a financial objective. Now, I find that term social business, I find that a hard term. I find it a struggling kind of concept, to be honest. Because in my mind, any business starts out with making people happy. Starts out with a product that people want to have. It starts out with designing a product that fixes an actual problem, at least in my mind. Let's look at a couple of examples here. So Nokia, connecting people. Isn't it a social goal? Nike, everybody should be an athlete, fighting obesitas. Pretty social goal, I would say. And yeah, I mean, I would say our goal is definitely social as well. We're trying to make the world a better place by eliminating fossil fuels for transport. The problem with it, however, is that if you want to do that quickly, and if you want to do it on a large-scale basis, I need to incentivize people. I need to put down infrastructure out on the streets that I have to pay for right now and is going to be paid off in the future by people using it. So in order to put down a fast charger right now, for example, I need to invest, say, 50,000 euros. And then on every charge transaction that I do there, or that people do there, I get a margin, let's say €1. So 50,000 euros transactions later on, I earn it back. Now, that immediately requires me having to go out to investors. Investors require returns. So the company immediately starts to become focused on making profits instead of actually fixing a problem. And that's a balance that I sometimes find hard to strike. So the question actually is that I have in my mind constantly, in order to achieve a goal and do it quickly, do you kind of have to dance the financial dance? And if so, how do you balance that? Now, I don't have the actual answer there, and it's actually my last slide, so I'd actually want to hear opinions from you guys. What do you think on that? In my mind, it's actually pretty hard to balance the social aspect with the financial aspect. And I saw a bunch of challenges in one of the previous presenter slides. The actual legal entities that are not designed to do social business, working with investors. There's a bunch of big challenges that we also have. So I basically wanted to open up the floor for questions around what we actually are doing in the area of electric vehicles, but maybe also about how we tackle the problem of being social as well as making a profit at the same time.
The last part of your presentation about reconciling the social or environmental objective with the need to make a profit in the end, especially in finding financing. How did you reconcile that in the early days of the company, where you had the big, hairy, audacious goal of eradicating fossil fuel use in everyday transport, but had to find investors? How did you convince them that your objective was worthy of investment?
I usually find an objective itself not to be very worthy of an investment. I mean, anybody can say, I want world peace. It's kind of impossible to finance that, right? So it's more, the objective is one thing, but actually people dreaming the objective becoming a reality are much more important. So with that, patting myself on the back a little bit, but you know, the team is what's being funded together with the objective. So in the early days, we said, well, eradicating fossil fuel use, that's one thing, but then a bunch of good people that are willing to actually just run their asses off, put their asses on the line to make this a reality. And that's what actually got us the funding in the first instance. So in that sense, it's not just the objective. I mean, that's nice, but you can't fund an objective. Now, throughout the history of the new emotion, the bigger things become and the higher the stakes start to become, the more precise you're going to have to be about how you're going to fill in that objective, how you're going to reach that objective, and also how you're going to sustain your organization. So the more you're drawn to making that business a reality, the more the later rounds of financing that we have done actually included much more financial planning, and the investors become actually much more financially oriented. So does it answer your question a little bit?
I guess so. What I take from it is in the beginning, what is important is not just an objective, but especially a team that's worthy of investing in. And then the more you grow, the more important the financial objectives become.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. We have a few questions from the audience. Just to remind everybody, at the top left of your screen, there is a question mark which says ask a question. So anyone is invited to post their questions right there. We've got a question, which is, how do you educate customers to adopt your solution?
A bunch of things around that. Basically, what we've done, we've taken the stance that we shouldn't talk about sustainability. We're in electric vehicles, to some degree, immediately trigger a bunch of questions. How long can you charge your car? How far can you drive? Aren't these batteries, degrading very fast, so that I can only drive 50 kilometers in a year from now? We have, we aren't really focusing our messaging on the sustainability part. So also we're not focusing on where does the electricity come from at this point. We're not focusing on how much CO2 you're actually saving. We're actually focusing more on the lifestyle aspect of things. So we're trying to make it an attractive product because I firmly believe that only people will start doing it if the product is attractive enough. You can design a perfectly CO2 neutral car, but if it only drives 20 kilometers an hour, people will not buy it. So that's the first part of our marketing, so to say. Basically, just only talk about the attractive aspects of the product and not so much touch on the sustainability areas of the product. People want to go. People want to see their families. People want to, drive 30 on the 30, 40 kilometers on the highway, drive 80 or 90. So we don't talk about the negative aspects. That's first. Now, so what we've set up is a Our distribution strategy is basically aimed at contracting with the car manufacturer, and then with the car manufacturer, so that as you buy an electric car, you will get with it. So it's included in the list price, usually of the car. You'll get our services. In electric driving is starting to become a bit more right. So in that sense, we don't have to educate people a lot anymore about electric driving itself. Using the car manufacturers, we've actually been able to get our products in the list price of the car, so that you don't have to actually buy our products separately from the car. So we've worked hard on distribution strategy, and we don't really focus on the sustainability aspects. Cars have always been and will always be, I believe, a lifestyle product, a product of freedom, a product of going places, a product of venturing places and seeing things, going to your families, going to the beach, whatever. And I think that'll stay the same. Then all talk about, you shouldn't drive that much, or you have to drive using electricity because that saves the planet, will not make people change. So that's how we approach our customers.
I think that's a very important lesson also for other social businesses, is how to sell your product to the masses. And a lot of we're finding out right now is that in a lot of cases it's not the sustainability aspect, as you're saying, but how you help people achieve what they want to achieve, and then if you do it in a sustainable way, all the better. But in terms of marketing, indeed, it turns out that often the sustainability aspect comes last.
Yeah, I think actually it's 5 years ago that was different. 5 years ago, a lot of green businesses. I'm not saying social businesses, but more like green businesses were more on the green aspect of things, rather than having a good product. So in that sense, you've just got to have a product which is compelling, which is not just only green, but it's compelling. It's a compelling alternative. It's actually a better alternative from what's out there. So I really think that's really important, and I'm seeing that change, because after all, we continue to be consumers. In good and in bad, we're consumers, and we want good products. It could be to satisfy a certain desire, and then on second thought, they have to be a good product, and the good product also comprises of being sustainable or taking care of the environment. But it's not the first goal product you satisfy.
Exactly. So in 4 years, you've grown the company to about 70 people right now, which I would define as an important success. What would you say have been the most important success factors in the past 4 years? What has led you to grow this quickly?
I think there's a couple of things there. Well, first of all, you can't define success in employee count or head count. I think the success that we're usually measuring things in is the number of charge transactions that we have on a particular day, and the number of kilometers driven electrically, which you can devise from that number. So there's a bunch that we use internally to kind of track how successful we are, and the head count. But sure, quickly. And I think there's a couple of things that we've done. It just applies to any business. I think you've got to think really, really hard about what your long-term goals are. So using this planning pyramid internal, which I displayed on a previous slide here, basically, in essence, what we're doing is we're selling charge stations at this point. And I think I haven't used that phrase earlier in the presentation, but in essence, we are selling charge stations at this point and installing them for people. But what's important is to think about your long-term goal. So in 30 years, we want to eradicate fossil fuel use for transport. That's our goal. It's not the goal to sell as many charge stations as possible. So I think, first of all, it's important to keep a long-term goal into account. And then slowly plan your way backwards from that goal to what you have to do today in order to reach that goal in 30 years. It's a bit like putting a man on the moon. Kennedy said that, early in the 60s. He said, in 10 years' time, I want to put a man on the moon. Nobody said it was possible. In the end, he did it. Now, it's a long-term goal, which kind of gives people a dream to work towards too. Maybe we'll never get there, but it's okay, because it gives people a dream to work towards too. It gives people kind of an aspirational kind of thing to look at. So we work hard on instilling it into everybody in the company. We're not about selling charge stations, although we do that on an everyday basis. No, we're about eradicating fossil fuel use. But that's one first thing. The second, which I think is really important, is get the right people in place. At this point, you've got to raise money to get a business on the ground, like we're doing at this point. We need good product developers. We need good operational excellence in installing all these charge stations in people's houses. Now, most of the people actually are good at you, and they like the long-term goal. But in the first place, they're really good at what they do. And that's the important aspect, I think. So you shouldn't just hire people for believing in the long-term goal. I think you should hire people for being really good at what they do. It sounds like a no-brainer, but business models and only hire people that are believing in the dream, but they're not good at what they do. So which is able to kind of assist the growth that we have. So that's on the team side of things. So for goal, second of all, get a good management team in place, get eight players in place, and those are and there's a bunch of commercial things that we've done right. I mean, we've secured these contracts with the car makers, so that our products are delivered alongside the car, which is really a big success factor for us. This name, but those are, I think, two of the more important ones.
Okay, thank you. We've got another question from the audience, which is, how do you finance your development? Are you sustainable financially right now, or do you continuously need more capital investment?
Let me think how to answer that question. Parts. So first of all, if you would buy a car, then we install the charge station. Now that part of the business is pretty much cash flow positive. So we can just basically continue to do that without needing additional capital. Now there are a bunch of things that do need extra cash. So going into this graph that you're seeing on the top right corner here is the graph that sees this big spike between 6 and 9 p.m., right? Now this is like I said before, this is the spike that we're seeing in the general electricity network already. So it's not just charging vehicles; it's basically the spike that also occurs in the entire electricity network. Now what we're developing is software and hardware that basically is able to shift that peak into the night. You're seeing a big trough at around 6 a.m. in the morning. Now what we ideally want to do is allow you to plug in your car at 6 p.m. and then it doesn't start charging immediately, and it only starts charging at, say, 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning. And then at 9 a.m. in the morning, it's full. Now, that kind of stuff requires a lot of investments. It requires product development, and the returns of that product development will only show in 5 or 6 years' time. But we need to start developing it now, otherwise we won't be ready in time to actually reap the benefits of it. So that's something that we're actually investing a lot of money in, and that's actually something we still need additional cash for. In that sense, some parts are cash flow positive, some parts of the business will still require additional product development. But we're okay, how much cash get in the future? How many costs are we saving for other companies? And all these questions we ask, and then we basically go to our shareholders, and then we basically fund the business with additional cash. So positive, partially it needs some additional cash to get these products out there in the future.
Okay, thank you. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the importance of partnerships for your company? Because I have the impression that yours is a company that has a philosophy that is different from what used to be the standard business philosophy in previous decades, and instead goes to really embrace partnerships and a sharing mentality. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. Now, basically, I've always been in industries that are relatively new. So, when the first mobile phones came onto the market, nobody knew what this business was going to look like. Nowadays, we've got basically 2 or 3 roles in the mobile phone business. There's such as Verizon or Vodafone or T-Mobile, and then there's mobile phone manufacturers such as Apple or Samsung or HTC or Nokia. Now, we didn't know in advance that this was the way it was going to pan out. Now, there's this practice that we call emerging business areas. And part of the idea of emerging business areas is looking at what value constellations are going to be there. So what kind of network of players is going to be making up this entire market? Now, we could try to build a car, we could try to build a charge station, we could try to sell subscriptions, we could try to do all the installation work, we could try to just capture everything. But that's probably not the way that's going to be sustainable, because it's either going to be too much for us to control. Our span of control is just not that big, or we're not all of that. So we've decided to kind of focus on just a few things. And these few things we've put in what we call a value constellation, and we've drawn a big picture. And in that picture, there's all kinds of other parts of the value constellation, and we've assigned names to them. So we sell charge stations, and we operate the back office on top of which we do these transactions. Now, the electricity companies, they sell electricity. Installation companies install stations. The network companies install the electricity network. The car manufacturers make cars and sell them. So we've kind of drawn up a network in which we play a particular part. So in that sense, we really are heavily partnership based. And kind of the thing I keep in mind always is you can better have a smaller piece of a very big pie than just 100% of a very small pie. So what we always try to do is enlarge the pie, make the pie possible, and get a certain part, and then we grow with all, and then we get a bigger share of it as well. So yeah, partnership based.
Okay, thank you. Finally, can you share a little bit more about your personal motivation? You said at the beginning of the presentation that you wanted to do something that you could explain to your grandmother. Did you succeed in that, by the way? Does she understand the business?
I don't think she understands the business. In the Tesla that we drive, and then she told me, I really want to be in that car. because she was the first woman to drive a gas car in her neighborhood. She's about 95 or 96 right now, I think. She was the first woman to drive in an electric car about 2 or 3. What I put her into the Tesla, this Tesla Roadster is really, really fast. So it goes like 0 to 60 in 3 or 4 seconds. So she was really excited about being in that car. So I think she understands the car. I don't think she understands anything of the. But so that's the first. Now, second, my kind of personal motivation for doing this, I just say that it's not so much about the sustainability part of the business. It actually is. I just find it annoying that we've been driving gas cars for around 100 years, and that we haven't been able to find a more efficient way. Now, I usually am triggered a lot by efficiencies into the market. So if I'm here, then basically I see a whole parking deck full of rental cars. And then a mile later on, I see a parking deck full of cars of people that have gone on a holiday. Now, that's just very efficient. Or inefficient. These cars are there for 3 weeks of people that are going on a holiday. And at the same time, this business guy from New York, say, comes into Schiphol, rents a car, and goes out. Now, why can't this guy from New York just use the car of the guy that went on a holiday? Then we would just need half of all the cars. Now, it just annoys me that we have these huge inefficiencies in the market, just idling on the streets. Like all of Amsterdam is filled with cars and hardly anybody drives them. So it's a really, really annoying kind of thing for me. And I try to find solutions for these kind of inefficiencies. I've done it in software. I've done that in this case in electric driving. So that's my main motivation. And an outflow of that is actually saving on CO2 and so. The second motivation that I have, I just find it hugely interesting to kind of build innovative businesses and to inspire people to kind of run after a dream. I think there's about 70 people in the company right now, and I think they're all highly motivated. I think they're running after this dream of eradicating fossil fuel use. And I think we've stopped, which is unstoppable right now. So in that sense, on that part, I think we've long succeeded. Now, in terms of success as a company, I think we're not entirely there yet. We still have a bit of a way to go, but we're getting there. So, but I mean, these two things are my kind of personal motivation: solving these inefficiencies and just inspiring a huge amount of people to kind of run after this dream of no more gas cars in the streets.
And with that, I would like to finish this presentation. Thank you very much, Alef, for being with us today. Best of luck with your future endeavors. I would like to take this moment shortly to advertise our partner, the Unreasonable Institute, and especially Unreasonable at Sea, which is a travel for currently 11 social entrepreneurs who are visiting 14 different countries with one boat. They are being trained by over 20 mentors to make their social enterprises successful. And on the 26th of April, they will be giving a conference in Barcelona, to which all of you are cordially invited. Thanks once again, Alef, for being with us. Our next presentation will start in about 13 minutes at 12 p.m. GMT, and this will be Joris Wekenborg from Milk for India, which is a company started in the Netherlands and India, and Joris will tell us all about that. Finally, I would like to encourage all of you to share the event on Facebook and on Twitter. Twitter hashtag SENS24, and on Facebook you can enter the meeting as you all did with the link SENS24.enterthemeeting.com. Thanks very much, and thanks again to you, Alef, for being with us.